February, and we are in the middle of spreading 10 tons of macro and micronutrient fertilizer on this coastal tallgrass prairie to figure out whether or not plants and insects are limited by these nutrients. Hi, I'm Dr. Chelsea Prather. Most people don't spend much time thinking about prairies or insects, but I spend a lot of time thinking about both because both are extremely important. Prairies, ecosystems dominated by native grasses, are almost gone. Less than 1% of them remains globally. We've converted most of them to croplands or rangelands to raise our food because very rich soils develop underneath prairie vegetation. This soil literally feeds us because it feeds the plants and animals we eat. Prairies are not only important for creating soils that produce most of our food, but they act as natural erosion control. They suck up water and nutrients that may otherwise cause flooding or pollution. They store carbon that otherwise would be released as carbon dioxide, a greenhouse gas, and they are home to lots of native plants and animals, including insects. Insects are extremely important parts of these ecosystems. Insects can be food for lots of other animals, but are also important in regulating plants by eating them. They act as decomposers, decomposing dead things in ecosystems. They pollinate plants and can be predators, eating other organisms. For all these reasons, it's very important to understand the things that keep prairies and insect communities in them functioning. Although scientists have been studying prairies for centuries, we still have a lot to learn. For instance, scientists know that prairie plants and insects need certain levels of macronutrients, nutrients that are abundant in living tissues like nitrogen and phosphorus, to survive. But to keep the plants and animals that we raise for food, we've been dumping nitrogen and phosphorus fertilizers on the ground in large amounts for the past century. With nitrogen and phosphorus much more abundant on land, there is mounting evidence that other nutrients may become limiting to plant and animal growth, meaning their populations may not be able to grow anymore without adding more of these nutrients. Nutrients that are not abundant in living tissues but are still required for organisms to live are called micronutrients, things like calcium, potassium, sodium. And my lab developed a project to test the idea that with lots of macronutrients, nitrogen and phosphorus, in soils, that micronutrients will become more important to plant and animal communities in grasslands. With funding from the National Science Foundation, my insect ecology lab based at the University of Dayton in collaboration with the University of Houston has begun to experiment to look at how important micronutrients are to plant and animals and if their importance changes with macronutrients. To do this, for the past 2 years, we've been adding these chemicals to the soils in very large plots of the coastal tallgrass prairie in Texas and looking at the response of plant and animal communities. We've actually added over 20 tons of fertilizer, in large part by hand and partially by ETVs, to our plots. We then take the soil, plant, and insect samples from all of our plots to look at how these things have responded to the different nutrients we've added. We are starting to see some incredible results. Plant and animals do indeed respond to micronutrients, and the abundance of nitrogen and phosphorus can affect how micronutrients alter plant and animal communities in the prairie. Through this work that's funded by the National Science Foundation, we are continuing to learn really important things about the ways that prairies function and potentially how we might restore them and the reasons that we need to conserve them for future generations.